Senator Josh Hawley is lobbying President Trump to veto any COVID relief bill that lacks direct payments to the American people in a new interview that he gave to Politico.
Reports were that Trump seemed somewhat receptive to Hawley's proposal, but Larry Kudlow revealed just yesterday that Trump will likely sign that $908 billion plan if it does in fact clear Congress, depending on some of the policy details. Democratic strategist Jennifer Holdsworth and Senior Director of Policy at the Conservative Partnership Institute, Rachel Bovard, are here to discuss. Great to see you, ladies.
Good to see you guys.
Morning. See you. So, Rachel, let me start with you. I mean, this has been one of those sort of strange bedfellows situations. We've been covering it here extensively because obviously it's squarely in our wheelhouse. You've got Bernie Sanders and Josh Hawley and AOC basically on the same page here in terms of stimulus payments. Just kind of lay out how you see the lay of the land.
Well, I think you really have a divide in Congress between people who still view this as a crisis and people who need help and people who are just sort of politicking the issue. This is a distinct difference, I think, between where we were in March, where I think there was general agreement that, you know, people really do need help. This is a crisis not of their own making. This is what the government is actually here to do. But we lost that, I think, consensus. And so you're dealing with a group of people who are trying very much see this as still a crisis point and people who are just like, look, we got to check a box. Let's get this done.
So what's interesting, Jennifer, is I saw a lot of criticism against Hawley and Bernie. They said, why are you letting be the perfect be the enemy of the good? How can you say that Trump should veto it? You're putting all this money in danger. And just this morning, I wake up, I'm reading Playbook, and it says Senate Majority Leader's opposition to direct payments has softened. And so it seems that now the White House, Trump, Kevin McCarthy, Hawley, and Bernie are now all united in wanting stimulus checks, and McConnell may actually have to give in. It may be an actual victory here for once from some of the people who purport to be economic populists in the Senate.
Yeah, it's absolutely the right thing to do. This bill should in no way, shape, or form be signed without direct payments. Both bills coming out of the House, I believe it was in May and September, both had direct payments. They should have taken up one of those bills. There is no question that it should be vetoed unless it has these direct payments in it. And it's a real win for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Yeah. And Rachel, I mean, I think one of the things here, one of the pieces here, why there is a little bit of negotiating leverage is because McConnell and the other Senate Republicans and some of the Democrats too, by the way, they want this corporate liability shield thing. They're getting, I mean, seriously, their donors and a lot of the lobbyists in this town are pressuring them big time to make sure that corporations are not held accountable when they put their workers at risk and they ultimately end up getting coronavirus. So that, I think, specific piece has provided a little bit of leverage to these negotiations that, yeah, okay, if we're going to give you a corporate liability shield, at the very least, people should get another direct stimulus payment.
Yeah, let's be clear about Mitch McConnell. The man is not ideological. I've only seen 3 issues ever motivate him at all, and they are big business, war, and campaign finance. And so if there is something that will get one of those things done and it's direct payments, he will probably do it. And look, again, also don't rule out the jet fumes that are circulating around D.C. right now. Everybody wants to go home. This is Congress in December. And so I think that you have a little bit more leverage at this point in the month than you did 2 months ago, let's say.
Yeah. And, you know, Jennifer, this is one question I have, which is, I think we need to hear from Biden here on this. I have not yet heard him. I mean, he's backed the $908 billion bill, hasn't talked about direct stimulus, hasn't really encouraged. He's basically been very deferential to Nancy Pelosi and to Chuck Schumer. But look, they haven't been able to deliver on this. And if he's going to be the president-elect, I think he needs to speak out on something like this.
Yeah, I think you're going to see him continue to be deferential to Nancy Pelosi until he takes the helm. I don't think there's any question that he supports direct payments. And I think as soon as he gets in there, you're going to hear him say that if, God forbid, we don't actually get something done right now. I think you're absolutely right. I think jet fumes are flying around D.C. and everybody wants to go home before the holidays. But I don't think there's any question that you're going to start to hear from him about it as Inauguration Day gets closer.
Yeah, and Jen, I have a very dim view of the likelihood of anything more beyond this getting done. I mean, to me, once they get their corporate liability shield, once Biden is in office, Republicans are all going to be aligned and basically saying, oh, the debt, the deficit, we can't spend anymore. Sure, we'll work with you together on cutting Social Security. But is there like an optimistic case that maybe you have in mind for how once Biden is inaugurated, he could potentially get another stimulus package?
Yes, and it goes through Georgia. That's the optimism I have. I mean, I think unless we win both of those seats and VP-elect Harris is the deciding vote, I think we have to be a little bit pessimistic. There's no way that the Republicans are going to hand President-elect Biden a victory on one of his first initiatives when he gets into office. Yes, they are all of a sudden going to find their fiscal responsibility souls again when there's a Democrat in office. And unfortunately, the populace be damned.
Yeah, I mean, so tell me, Rachel, do you agree with that? I actually kind of do. I think that's where, if the party was there under Trump, there's no reason why they're not going to try and return to that, at least even more so under Biden. Is there any hope whatsoever for working together on something like this?
Well, I think, part of it is that Republicans are going to find their fiscal soul again, because that's just what they do when a Democrat's in office. They regress to the mean in that sense. But I also think you have a group of Republicans that really does think, look, the situation is changing. We have a vaccine on the horizon. Can we actually get ourselves out of this and back to some sort of semblance of normal? And so I think you're going to have to deal with that dynamic as well. But again, you also have other dynamics. Josh Hawley's not going away. You have Marco Rubio. You have senators who say they are interested in a more working class dynamism in the Republican Party. Now, they got to show up and start pushing that stuff on the floor for it to actually work. But I'm not really that hopeful for anything more than rhetoric at this point.
I think the only
some floor action.
The only way is if the stock market totally crashed. I mean, seriously, I hate to say it, but it's true. Like if the bottom fell out for rich people, then they would get their act together here. All right, ladies, stick with us. We're going to have more for Team Rising after this.
Thanks, guys.